Hi, I'm Megan.
And I'm Rob. You're watching
Lists of 13.
Here you'll find lists of various topics, all in sets of 13.
If you have tristodectophobia, an irrational fear of the number 13, this video may not be for you. Otherwise, enjoy the list.
We're doing a series about one of my favorite shows. So without further ado, live from New York.
Excuse me. We're not live, and we're in Missouri.
Oh, right. Got a little bit excited there. Either way, this video is part of a series about Saturday Night Live cast members.
By the way, it's one of my favorite shows too.
So,
enjoy the list.
Today we're talking about a cast member who was not on Saturday Night Live for a very long time, only 1 year in fact. At just 20 years old, Robert Downey Jr. joined the 1985-86 SNL cast. He never quite found his footing on the show, and as I said, his first season was also his last. Today we bring you 13 facts about Robert Downey Jr. that you probably didn't know.
Number 1. Whilst living in London, Robert Downey Jr. underwent grueling ballet lessons at the famed Perry House in Chelsea.
I remember seeing him do a couple things when he was doing his stand-up and whatnot, where it was pretty obvious that the dude was pretty nimble on his feet. It very possibly came from these lessons.
I think I also have seen interviews with him when he was doing his Marvel Iron Man character, and I think he also had referred to some of those lessons, helping with some of the action sequences for that as well.
Very cool. Fun stuff there. Number 2. In 1985, Lorne Michaels hired 20-year-old Robert Downey Jr. for the 11th season, but the actor only lasted 1 year. Downey has never said he was fired per se, but he did admit he was ill-suited to the show. I learned so much in that year about what I wasn't, Downey said in 2019.
Hey, I mean, every experience should provide a valuable lesson, and in this case he learned that stand-up sketch shows were not necessarily for him. So kudos for him to recognize that.
True.
Number 3. Robert Downey Jr. and the Sex and the City actress Sarah Jessica Parker met on the set of Firstborn. The pair were only 18 years old at the time, and they went on to live together for 8 years before breaking up in 1991. Downey Jr. later confessed that it was because of his excessive drug and alcohol use.
And I can say from experience that drug and alcohol use can definitely make relationships a little harder, possibly impossible. Number 4. Downey Jr. is a devout martial artist, and he spends a lot of his free time in the practice of Wing Chun, a concept-based Chinese martial art and form of self-defense.
That's super cool.
Tells me I'm not going to mess with Robert Downey Jr. Just throwing that out there.
Right. Number 5. He dropped out at the age of 17 from Santa Monica High School in California to pursue a future in acting. Remember, this was the 1980s. Dropping out of school now would be a much more detrimental thing.
True story. Number 6. Future actors Rob Lowe, Sean Penn, Charlie Sheen, and Downey Jr. all attended Santa Monica High School together and were friends.
Talk about a lot of famous people in the same place before they were famous.
Very true.
Number 7. Due to his prior criminal records, he was not allowed to enter a few countries. He was not allowed in Japan to promote his movie Iron Man.
It's kind of a annoyance, I bet.
I don't know, maybe at the same time though, like it's a reminder of how far you've come, and although you can't completely overcome it, like you can see the great places you've gone.
True story. Number 8. In 2004, as Downey Jr. was getting back into the Hollywood scene after getting clean and sober, he decided to try his hand at music. Sony Classical released his album, The Futurist, which features 8 pop ballads written and sung by the actor, as well as 2 cover songs. It was not really successful.
Well, I mean, he has many other talents, so perhaps if one doesn't work out, not such a big deal.
And again, like you said earlier, just like when he was on Saturday Night Live, it was something he tried, didn't work so well, he did other stuff instead.
Right. Number 9. His father, Robert Downey Sr., was a movie director, and his mother was an actress. So it's a given that acting runs in his veins. He first appeared as an on-screen puppy in his father's film Pound in 1970.
That makes sense. And I mean, that's one of those family businesses that a lot of times people want to see their kids do well at the same thing. So, number 10. Robert Downey Jr. is the only SNL alumni with a Best Actor nomination from the Oscars for his outstanding performance in the 1993 Chaplin.
Well, I can see how this might make sense. He became a more serious actor versus doing the stand-up type skits from SNL, which he identified as not being his thing. So that's a great piece of recognition for his work.
And it makes a lot of sense, I agree.
Number 11. Robert Downey Jr. would have been known as Robert Elias Jr. if his father hadn't changed his name in the early 1950s.
And really, I think Robert Downey Jr. sounds a whole lot better.
I concur.
Number 12. Robert Downey Jr.'s battle with addiction is well known. What is perhaps not as well known is that it started when the actor was only 6 years old. His father, Robert Downey Sr., gave Downey Jr. a marijuana joint to try at this very young age.
Yeah, that's remarkably young. I'm not really sure I've heard of any other 6-year-old in my life that was trying weed.
Really kind of sad.
Yeah, I mean, his father probably couldn't have ever estimated that he would become an addict, but when you introduced him to some of the things that he had a problem with, it's got to be difficult.
Right.
And number 13, during an interview with GQ, Robert's wife, acclaimed producer Susan Downey, told the world of her husband's other super skill apart from saving the world. He has excellent diaper wrapping skills of their then 1-year-old son, Exton.
We hope you enjoyed this list about Robert Downey Jr.
Tell us in the comments what your favorite fact or perhaps movie is from Robert Downey Jr.
or what fact surprised you the most.
Thanks again for watching. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up.
And if you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe to get notified when we post new videos.
After subscribing, ring the bell.
After that, tell all your friends.
We hope you enjoy your day and keep being kind to one another.